before we hop into the awesome show we've got for you, got to tell you about a new partner alert that we've got going on with our friends over at Solace Meds. Solace Meds has 4 convenient locations, one in Fort Collins, one off Broadway, one just blocks away from us right here at the DNVR bar on East Colfax, and of course one in Wheat Ridge as well. And guys, for the month of June, with the heat heating up, they've got some smoking hot deals. They're offering 15% off all Gold Shelf concentrates, 20% off Wana tinctures and tarts, 20% off Mountain Select rosin and cartridges, 20% off Blues Brothers joint packs. They've got so many deals going on, including 20% off all Dixie products. I know so many of us at DNVR are big fans of that. And if you use the magical code DNVR20, you'll get 20% off all of that, plus those deals. And at the Wheat Ridge location, if you use that code, you'll get 20% off and a free Solace bar or King Cone. So make sure to check them out over at solacemeds.com or in person and use that code DNVR20. All right, Mace, let's hop into the show.
Number one for the one and only DNVR. Two goes out to Zach Mace, Arcade, and the bar. 3 for Mr. B in that old trophy case. Number 4 we're still waiting for, well, bring on the chase. Out on the field at Mile High, Broncos win is our desire. Coupled with a break, brew and a friend, bleed orange and blue to the bitter end. Come and join us, DNVR. We are DNVR.
Welcome into the DNVR Broncos podcast on this Monday edition. I'm your host, Zach Stevens, joined by my man, Andrew Mason. We are just coming in from Broncos practice, which we both got to see the entirety of. But before we hop into everything we learned from today's practice, gotta tell you about our presenting sponsor, MSU Denver Online. Because over at MSU Denver Online, they're the new urban online university with learning outcomes equivalent to face-to-face courses, which is unheard of at other universities, but MSU delivers. They have great gen eds taught by real people, great completion options, full programs, and virtual services to keep you healthy and happy on your way to graduation. They're the preeminent online university in the Rocky Mountain region, so make sure to check them out over at MSU Denver Online. My boy, Mace, what's shaking, my friend?
Hey, you know what? It's Monday. We're at practice. It's a beautiful, warm, late spring, early summer day here in the Mile High City. Broncos are at work on the field. All seems right with the world today.
It does. And like you said, things are heating up specifically with the quarterback position. Before we jump into everything with that, Mace, I got to tell everyone tuning in live right now, please go to YouTube, tune in there that we have a better picture quality, better stream. Hit us with a like, a subscribe when you do it. Really, really helps us out. And of course, hop in the comment section like our friend Higher Learning has. He says, hey, Broncos country. And I say, hey to you, Higher Learnings. And Mace, I say, who was smoking hot today on the field? Were there any quarterbacks smoking hot today?
Wouldn't say either of them was smoking hot today. I'm talking about Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock. We'll get into that. Bridgewater had the better of things today, clearly, I think, but he also had a bad throw. There was that interception that he threw. He was looking for Deontay Spencer downfield, heading toward the corner, and put too much on it, too far. Jamar Johnson got the pick. So, not the best day for either quarterback. But you would say Teddy Two Gloves probably got the better of it if you had to say one or the other today.
Not even probably, Mace. If we were judging each and every day so far, we've seen 3 full practices. This thing would be over. If we were judging just on these 3, Teddy Bridgewater has been the better quarterback. Now, the first week, pretty close, but I would have given the edge to Teddy. Last week, it was very clear that Teddy was the better quarterback, and I feel the exact same way about this week. Teddy was the better quarterback. Now, like you said, was Teddy a perfect quarterback? Was he Aaron Rodgers out there, Peyton Manning? No, he wasn't perfect, but today he was light years ahead of Drew Lock, and it was almost a similar story, different day from what we've seen from Teddy and Drew these past 2 weeks. Mace, from what I saw from Drew today, it was much more of the exact same from what we've seen these past couple of weeks. Maybe through 1 or 2 balls past 10 yards. Otherwise, it was check down. Now, credit to him, it does seem like he's going through his reads better, but it seems like every read he's a little too hesitant to throw the ball until it's the wide open check down, 3 yards downfield. I do like that Drew is looking through his reads more, but it seems like every single time it ends in just a check down for 3 yards.
Yeah, I think hesitant is the apt word, because when you see him trying to get to the second, third read and beyond, you can almost kind of see him thinking.
Right.
And you can hear kind of the gears kind of meshing in his head almost as he's trying to kind of get through things. He's having to think, and he's not just kind of relaxed and out there just looking and throwing. And when I look at his mistakes today, like he had 2 interceptions. One of them, the ball slipped out of his hands. It was, just if it had been in a game, NFL Films would have had a clip for football follies for the next 10 years, because he went back to throw, it fell out of his hand, and Malik Reed was right there, Johnny, on the spot with the interception.
And Mace, really quick on that one, I called it a fluke play just because of how bizarre it was, but it was. I mean, he drops back, Malik Reed, great pressure on the outside. This has nothing to do with Drew, though. It didn't affect him at all.
Right.
He drops back. I don't know if it was like he cocked his arm or decided to hold back, but then the ball went backward right into Malik Reed's arms.
It was kind of that hesitancy. It was like the same thing that we saw later on. It was like he was kind of thinking, and you saw him sometimes kind of looked like he kind of tapped the ball a little bit, like you could see him kind of hesitating, making up his mind. Do I go here or do I not? And then you had the interception 7-on-7 right after that, where he's looking right for Eric Saubert, and he just kind of takes that time a little bit, and he tries to jam it into a tight window, and because he's kind of locked in on Saubert, Justin Simmons did what a Pro Bowl All-Pro safety should do. He read it, got one bobble, brought it in, took it to the house. But everything for Drew, the struggles right now, it comes down to hesitation. If he's just like going first read or second read, he's having some moments. Like you can see, like one pass, I think to Andrew Beck. It was down. It was right at the hash marks, so just inside of the seam to the left, and he gets it past 2 defenders, and it's a bullet, it's a rope. It's exactly what you want to see, and so you still see those throws where he shows off the arm talent, and you can see that, and that's not something that Teddy has. But you're also seeing too many times where he just looks like he's thinking rather than reacting.
Yeah, it was a tough start for Drew. I believe that Malik Reed interception that slipped out of his hand was the first throw during 7-on-7 or during 11-on-11 full team, because they were doing a lot of running. And then, like you said,
it seemed like everyone groaned in the media watching up top when we saw that.
Right. Well,
everyone's like, oh, no.
And you even saw Drew. I mean, I think he put his hands on his helmet like, oh, my gosh, that did not just happen to start this off, because he knows what type of competition he's in. And then the very next period, 7-on-7, he throws that pick to Justin. A bad decision, a great play by Justin Simmons right there. There's no doubt about that. Drew seemed to calm down as practice went on. When I mean calm down, I'm talking about all of those checkdowns. He did, however, middle of practice, have what should have been an interception. Jamar Johnson got both hands on it. Drew tried to rely on his arm too much and zip a pass into the middle of the field. There were defenders left and right, and also zipping the pass wasn't what he needed, Mace. He needed the touch on that pass to get it over Jamar, because the safety was inside, kind of playing linebacker depth, and didn't get it over. Jamar had 2 hands, should have been an interception. To Drew's credit, he ended practice on a better note. Now, it was just during 7-on-7s. During team, I didn't see him take any shots down the field that were successful, but during 7-on-7s, the very last period, he did bounce back, had some nice completions deep as well.
Yeah, and that was his best period toward the end, 7-on-7. Now, they did something interesting both in the last team period and in 7-on-7. That last team period, if you notice, Drew went out there and he was behind a backup offensive line.
Right.
For that, even though he was up first in that period, backup O-line. It's just part of how they're kind of shuffling things around. But in the team periods, like you said, Drew wasn't finding much deep, whereas Bridgewater was making some deep connections. He didn't. Now, think about this. He didn't have Noah Fant. Noah Fant had his wisdom teeth pulled last week and was not out there. Vic kind of implied that, hey, I had my wisdom teeth pulled and I was back a couple of days later. But
yeah, Vic jokingly called him soft.
Yes.
He actually said Vic had his wisdom teeth when they were pulled many years ago.
Yeah.
He had them pulled and he was playing golf a couple of hours later.
But even a practice for football is different than golf. I can see how you could golf, at least recreationally. I don't think that even a practice is something you'd want to do after having your wisdom teeth
After
out.
my wisdom teeth, I was done for like 2 weeks, so I don't blame Noah.
But he was there.
Wisdom teeth experience is different.
Yes, it's very true. Yes. Yeah, so
Yes.
Vic just got it easy.
See, I didn't have all 4 of mine at once.
That sounds miserable.
I had a couple at once, and then I had another pulled out. And
Oh, that does not sound
I had them
fun.
pulled out on an as-needed basis.
Oh, okay. And
Not the best decision. I should have just had it all in one, but it is what it is. That was the choice I made. But no Noah Fant, and Noah Fant has been one of 2 security blankets for Teddy Bridgewater out there. The other, of course, being Jerry Jeudy, and it was Jerry Jeudy who was on the end of probably Bridgewater's best pass of the day, downfield, outside the numbers, left side for about 25 yards, placed it well. And again with Bridgewater, although he had the pick, what you're talking about in general is he's placing it well, which is what you expect.
He's really placing it well. And Teddy, he had one bad play, which was an interception. He was looking deep, threw it into double coverage. It was a bad decision. It was an underthrown pass. It could have been completed, but it would have had to taken a perfect throw. You shouldn't do that. Bad decision, Teddy. Outside of that, though, Mace, I was very, very, very impressed with Teddy, specifically with his chemistry with Jerry Jeudy, Mace. I think it's very clear. If Teddy Bridgewater's the quarterback for this team, Jerry Jeudy is going to eat. And it makes sense. It's not just because, Cortland Sutton's not out there. It's because Teddy's an anticipatory thrower. He says, I'm going to throw to a spot that I know is going to be open. And Jerry Jeudy, we know he's going to be open. It's just about throwing it when he's open and not waiting too long. And we saw that sometimes last year where the ball was being thrown too late when Jerry had separation. Teddy's doing that perfectly. He's throwing it before Teddy's open, and then once the ball gets there, he's open. And we saw so many. I mean, I had at least 3 deep completions, one for a touchdown, one on the right sideline, where credit to Jerry. He went up, got it in some tight coverage, fell down hard. I mean, you could feel the ground shake with how hard Jerry Jeudy felt, and he held on to the ball. And there was another one
he was
for
ecstatic
25
about
yards.
that too,
as he should have been.
Jerry was, because he spiked the ball. A couple of teammates came up. There was that regular season intensity.
Yep.
From Jerry Jeudy when he caught that pass in tight coverage.
And no drops today from Jerry and team in 7-on-7.
That's 2 practices that we've seen of the 3 where he hasn't dropped a pass. He had a drop in that first practice a couple of weeks back that we saw. But, yeah, Jeudy, and it's funny, Vic Fangio wanted to downplay the Bridgewater-Jeudy chemistry because you asked him about it in the post-practice Zoom, and he kind of said, it's something that you're developing even over years and you're getting better chemistry. But it's one of those things, Zach, where, in your words, open your eyes. I think if you have eyes and they're working, you can see that Teddy and Jerry Jeudy are in lockstep right now. They're on the same
lockstep.
page.
Maybe we should say they're in Bridgewater step or something.
Maybe
they're in Teddy step.
Maybe they've got the bridge that they've built the bridge that connects the 2 of them together mentally. They have that symbiosis.
It does appear like that.
Yeah.
And Mace, that's a great thing for Teddy to have. Obviously, it's great for Jerry to have, but that's a great thing for Teddy to have, or for Teddy to have, because if he's able to build that chemistry, then that's just going to help him earn this job. And again, Teddy had one bad mistake, but outside of that, Mace, it was the same story, just a different week where Drew wasn't throwing deep. Teddy was throwing deep. Was Teddy connecting on everything deep? No, he had the interception deep, but he was connecting on a very good rate of passes deep. And last week we said, okay, well, one thing you have to realize, there's no pressure in these guys' face. It's only 7-on-7. Can't say that this week. Now, they're never going to be hit during practice, so you're never going to see that type of pressure.
And Von Miller was holding back today.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he was going against Cameron Fleming because Bobby Massey was out. And there were a couple of times where Vaughn had a beat on the quarterback, and he gave himself the stop sign.
Yeah. Yeah,
he could have wrecked things today if he wanted to.
Yeah, and that's what Vaughn does, and that's what Vaughn was doing last year before he got hurt.
Yeah.
But when the pressure was there, what I heard some people saying last week was wait till the pressure gets to Teddy and then see how quick of decisions he's making and how many checkdowns he's taken. That was not the case today. Again, maybe it changes week 1 when he's able to be hit, but today, Teddy just looks very calm back there, and he's not rushing anything.
I mean, he is who he is. He's like you said, steady Teddy. It's got a better connotation than average Teddy, and because he's an average quarterback. Now, I know Chris Sims had the ranking. You saw Chris Sims when he had him like 32 and Drew Lock 33.
Yep.
Teddy is better than the 32nd best quarterback in the NFL. He was better than the 32nd best quarterback last year.
Yeah.
In the NFL, he is an average, middle range starter.
What's funny is he was better than Sam Darnold, and Carolina decided to move on from Teddy for Sam Darnold because of that potential, that ceiling word. That's what they went for. But
that is so seductive.
It is.
The ceiling potential. Because it's seductive with Drew Lock, too. Because
of course.
When you see him wing it past a couple of linebackers like he did to Beck late in practice, that's where you say, wow, that's an A-level throw.
Yeah.
Want to see more of that. But with Drew Lock, I know we love to talk about the ceiling, and I know that people who are the most vociferous defenders of Drew Lock justifiably talk about the ceiling, but you can't talk about the ceiling without talking about the floor. And just as we saw the ceiling on a couple of plays, we saw him scrape the ceiling, we also saw him scrape the bottom because he had 2 picks, and like you mentioned, if Johnson makes the interception, which would have been his second of the day because he had the one off Teddy, then it's 3 picks. 1 a fluke out of his hands, but the other 2 wouldn't have been flukes.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And Mace, that's why I'm saying after today, if we were calling this after today, it would be very easy that it would be Teddy Bridgewater.
It's a good thing for Drew we're
with
not
the
calling
job.
Today.
Yes, it is. And I do understand that it's still very, very early in the process, Mace, but everything has pointed to that this thing is clearly favoring Teddy Bridgewater, and he's the new guy here, but he's the veteran. So some people may say, well, he should be winning this. Well, do remember, though, this is Drew's second year in the offense. This is what he needed, right? The continuity was to not have to start from so far behind. He's not having to start from behind, and he's struggling, at least compared to Teddy.
Now, the thing with Drew, though, is this. It doesn't look natural right now, him kind of trying to go through his progressions, and I think that's a concern. Can he get to a point where he improves at this and it does become natural? And that's going to be the determining factor, I think, in whether he can be the starter or not.
Yeah.
Because if it reaches a point where he's seen enough, he's done enough in terms of what he's absorbed from Peyton Manning, what he's absorbed from his film study this offseason, and he gets past the point where he's thinking about it and instead has improved his mental process to where he's reacting in a way that where he's thinking so quickly that it's just a reaction. If he can do that and do that in training camp in the preseason, he will probably win the job. The other thing, like you mentioned, is he's got to learn when to throw the fastball and when to throw the changeup. Because, like you mentioned, that interception, that near interception by Jamar Johnson, that doesn't happen if he throws the changeup. Instead, he tries to throw the fastball, and that's not what that's not the pitch that moment called for.
Right, and I know last week we had some people saying, well, there's some other media members that are saying, Drew's been better. Well, those media members even today were saying, even publicly on Twitter, I saw that Teddy had the better day. So it's not just, we're high on Teddy. No, he had the better day. And one of the conversations, speaking of other media, that I had with other media today was, it seems like Drew is trying to play Teddy's type of ball, like just check downs, be extra safe with it. If anyone's going to win that, Mace, Teddy's going to be the best version of Teddy. Drew does not need to be Teddy. Drew needs to be safer with the ball and go through his reads, but he still needs to be taking those chances downfield. Only saw 2 times at the end of the practice him do that in 7-on-7s. He needs to be Drew, just a better Drew. He doesn't need to be better by being Teddy, because Teddy Bridgewater is going to be the best version of Teddy Bridgewater. Drew's not going to be able to out Teddy at being Teddy.
But the thing is, though, if Drew is kind of himself rather than trying to be the more controlled quarterback, is that going to be a successful equation for him? I mean, maybe he gets his completion percentage up, but his yards per attempt goes down, and maybe. And what if his touchdown interception ratio playing that style is just okay? Like it's really interesting to think on Drew, because he can't be who he was last year.
Right. He's got to be a better version.
He's got to be a more accurate version of that quarterback. He's got to make better decisions. He can't pass up the dime to try to take the long shot at the quarter.
You're absolutely right, but Mace, what we're seeing so far is we're not seeing any of Drew's good game that we saw last year. The flashes where he's throwing the strikes for the big gains, taking those chances down the field. All we're seeing is the mistakes short. We're not getting any of the reward of Drew. That's why he needs to still be Drew, just a more refined and older version of Drew. And something else, Drew is right now, he's throwing 95-mile-an-hour fastballs, and that's all he's got in the arsenal. Teddy, he has the 85-mile-per-hour fastball that absolutely can be hit, a.k.a. picked off, but he's also got the 79-mile-per-hour changeup. He's not going to blow you away with his heat, but his fastballs are good enough. And he also has some changeup ability. Right now, we're only seeing one pitch from Drew. If he develops a changeup, it's tougher to hit a 79-mile-an-hour changeup when you're throwing 95 like Drew can than it is from 85 to 79. So, again, it comes back to potential. Drew has the ceiling that you want. It's like we talk about. You combine these two, and you give Drew the 95-mile-per-hour fastball, pair him with that 79-mile-per-hour changeup, and boom, now we're talking. But right now, Drew's got one pitch where Teddy has two that aren't that different.
And the other thing is also, if Bridgewater does end up winning the job, does he have any distance left to reach a ceiling? Like, is what we saw last year in Carolina the ceiling, or that type of season he had in New Orleans where he was 9-2 on touchdowns and interceptions in the 5 games that he started?
5-0 as a starter too.
Yeah. I mean, if you play the QB wins thing, that's you know what? If he has 4 touchdowns for every 1 pick, or even slightly better than that, like he did in New Orleans, the QB wins are going to come naturally as a result of that. But what if Teddy Bridgewater, he doesn't have the arm talent, but what if we're looking at somebody who, in a 17-game schedule, can throw 20 touchdowns and 5 picks?
That would be it.
Can you win with this team? Can win with that.
Absolutely. And Mace, what we saw today, which we're going to get into in just a second, is this team, while we've talked so much about the quarterbacks and the weapons that they have on offense the past 2 weeks because they've only been doing throwing drills, today we got to see the running game. And let's get into that, more of what we saw beyond the quarterbacks. But first, guys, got to tell you about our friends over at Chevalier Mortgage. Mike and Virginia Chevalier are such a great duo with the way they handle mortgages, because they look beyond just the mortgage and one interest rate. Michael Chevalier is a certified financial planner, so when he looks at your mortgage, he looks at more than just your mortgage. He looks at your entire financial picture in order to build a portfolio for you and decide the best way to go. And that's what you need, because you're not just talking about one number, you're talking about your entire finances, and you can give them a call directly. Call Virginia right now. It's 303-257-6578, or visit them at DNVRmortgage.com, and you'll also enter to win a free DNVR shirt or hat of your choice when you do, and you get set up with a free consultation with our friends over at Chevalier Mortgage when you go to DNVRmortgage.com. Free consultation you can't beat. Getting a certified financial planner to put together your mortgage, you can't beat our friends over at Chevalier Mortgage. So make sure to give them a call at 303-257-6578, or visit them at DNVRmortgage.com. Michael Chevalier, NMLS 1931006. Virginia Chevalier, NMLS 1910631.
Seeing some frustration comments over the quarterback scenario in the YouTube comments. Hey, I get the frustration. It's like someone said, it's been 5 years. It's been a long 5 years. But if you want to make yourself feel a little better in the short term, why not have a Breckenridge Brew, the official beer of DNVR? And it's not just Breckenridge Brews anymore. It's the Good Company hard seltzers, which, of course, we've got right here, the DNVR bar. And we love our Breck beers and seltzers, but what we love even more this summer is the fact that Breckenridge Brewery is teaming up with the National Parks Conservation Association. The tragic fires in Colorado last year were absolutely devastating for so many, and this is one of the many reasons that Breck will be donating 1% of all of their profits this summer to the National Parks Conservation Association. That's right. If you buy 1 pint or a pack of Breck Brews, you're donating 1% to the great outdoors. We're going to be hosting events at the DNVR bar to promote this collaboration. Come on down, drink a Breck Brew or a seltzer, and come away with some awesome swag from our friends at Breck Brew. You can also enter to win a $30,000 escape pod trailer. If you head to their website and enter to win, just go to breckbrew.com/ingoodco. That's breckbrew.com/ingoodco for more details on winning the $30,000 escape pod trailer. Good luck. Be sure to tag us and our friends at Breck Brew when you submit your entry to win. And if you're in the Denver area, don't forget about the Farmhouse, the restaurant down in Littleton. Use that magical code DNVR and save $5 off your meal. When you phone it in, call 303-803-1380 from noon to 8 p.m. They'll bring your order right out to your car. And if you want some Breck Brews or seltzers from there, they'll take care of you down at the Farmhouse. It's right off Santa Fe in Littleton. And they're open for dining as well. And it's a great place, great bar food as well if you're down in Littleton. So check that out. Breckenridge Brewery, the official beer of DNVR.
Man, Mace, I was here for the Avs game last night. What a disappointing game. We got ourselves a series, but the member brews were flowing despite the disappointing 5-1 outcome. And that's
so you're saying there were a lot of tears in people's beers last night?
There certainly were, and there were a lot of beers being drank with that result last night.
It's a 3-game series, though.
It is, and every home team has won. The Avs have 2 more home games, so hopefully that stays in their corner. But member beer is just one of the advantages you get of being a member here. And when you're here, what a member beer is it's a 22-ounce beer for the price of a 16-ounce beer, and you get that anytime you get a beer down at the DNVR bar. Just tell your bartender that you're a member. They'll give you the DNVR beer. You'll get the 22 ounces. You'll have a jolly good time over at the DNVR bar, and that's just one of the perks of being a member with us. Of course, you get to read all of our content, and I'm not just talking Broncos OTA coverage, but you get Nuggets playoffs, Avs playoffs, Rockies, whatever's going on in their season, Colorado XOs, Ruffs, Buffs, Rams. I combined them into Ruffs right there. You get it all over at thednvr.com. You also get to support us. You also get a free shirt with an annual membership, and boy, they're the best shirts. We're sitting right above the merchandise right here, and it is so awesome. I checked them all out. We just got 3 new shirts in, and they are all so comfy and so cool. So make sure to check us out over at thednvr.com. Become a member with us. And when you do, jump into the comment section, which we're going to get into right after I get Mace's take of what else happened at practice. Mace, first time we saw 11 on 11. We got to talk more than just about quarterbacks, even though that's the story.
Yeah, and it's interesting, of course, you have injuries, absences, etc. on both lines. You have Shelby Harris, of course, is coming off of a procedure that he had last month. We didn't see him out there. A lot of Deshaun Williams, by the way, who I thought had a pretty solid day getting some penetration.
And don't worry, none of those guys need an ambulance. That's just, just East Colfax for you.
Just hope everything's okay out there on East Colfax. But offensive line, really interesting because Garrett Bowles still absent. Personal family matter that he's attending to. Bobby Massey was in the building today, not practicing. He's a little banged up. So Calvin Anderson also at practice, no helmet. He was off on the side field working out, so he's got a little injury. So you look at the tackles today.
Injury bug sweeping across the Broncos.
Yeah, you see Quinn Bailey at left tackle and Cameron Fleming at right tackle.
Interesting.
Could have been better. And again, no full pads, no full contact, only so much you can take. But like I mentioned earlier, Von Miller, when he was out there in pass rush, just was having his way.
As he
was
should.
Holding back. He was mostly going against Fleming. Malik Reed was in position to get that pass that went whoop out of Drew Lock's hand because he whipped past Quinn Bailey. But again, look who they're working against. That's not what it's going to look like in the regular season, at least on the left side. Cameron Fleming, I'd like to see a little more of on the right side, but personally, I think if Fleming and Massey have an even competition, Massey is the one who's going to end up winning. Interior offensive line looks solid. It was as it should be. Dalton Reisner, Lloyd Cushenberry, Graham Glasgow left to right. And Dalton Reisner with some very kind words to say today about Lloyd Cushenberry.
Yes, he certainly did. He really likes what he's seen from the center right now. And we know the Broncos want Lloyd Cushenberry to be their starting center. Vic Fangio may be the biggest fan of his out there. Now, Lloyd needs to continue to progress from where he was last year, but he likes everything that he's seen so far, Vic and Dalton.
And Dalton pointed the fact that his calls, what he's doing pre-snap, that's an area where Lloyd Cushenberry has grown. We saw some progress from him late last year, but you think back to like the Atlanta game, for example, when you've got some interior rushes that are collapsing the pocket, lickety split, and part of it was both Drew and Lloyd weren't really on the same page as far as what to expect when the Falcons were bringing the rush from inside. So I think a much more settled presence from Lloyd Cushenberry and a much better job today. I just on first glance through the binoculars was having a solid day on the interior, although because again injuries, he's not going up against Mike Purcell. He's not going up against Shelby Harris.
Man, yeah, and I saw some plays from outside, inside being blown up, as this Broncos defense should do, especially against a backup offensive line. But, Mace, when it comes to the running back position, I saw just a complete rotation. I mean, we just see guys rotating. Javonte Williams with the first snap. Then you have Mike Boone getting in there. Then you have Royce Freeman getting in there. Then the next series, it's Royce Freeman, Mike Boone, Javonte Williams, Boone, Freeman, Will. I mean, it's going back and forth. It's like that's how they plan to run with this team. Now, how does it change when Melvin Gordon gets here? Because Melvin Gordon was not here today. There's been two major, I don't know if I want to call them holdouts during this offseason, during OTAs, but two major guys that haven't been there, Kyle Fuller and Melvin Gordon. Kyle Fuller showed up today. His first day, he missed the first 2 weeks of OTAs. He was back today, running with the ones, picked up just like he left off with Vic back in Chicago in 2018.
Looked very comfortable out there.
He did.
No issues that I saw from him.
Exactly. Looked like a vet that's played in Vic's defense for many years, an all-pro, Pro Bowler. Melvin Gordon, though, not there today. I expect him to be here next week for mandatory minicamp, and I'm going to be interested to see if it's just like Kyle Fuller. He picks up where he left off because it's the same offensive system, or if there's going to be some changes where he needs to integrate himself in. From what we saw today with Kyle Fuller, I would expect he's going to integrate himself in. But Mace, after seeing today, it wasn't like they just had a replacement for Melvin Gordon where it was Javonte Williams and let's say Mike Boone just going 1-2, 1-2, 1-2. It was 1-2-3, 1-2, 3-2, 3-2, 3-1. It was all over the place. Do you expect to see that? Maybe even 4 deep during the season?
It's a good question because is there room for all 4 on the 53-man roster? I mean, are you trying to have your 4th running back be a practice squad guy? If that's the case, then practice squad rules look like they're going to be the same as last year, which means you can put some vets on that practice squad, but that's where Royce Freeman might have to factor because of the 3 backs today, Royce, he didn't open auspiciously. He ran into, I believe, Quinn Bailey on the first play as the hole was getting set up. And Javonte Williams and Mike Boone both looked much quicker and decisive to the hole than Freeman did out there today.
Yeah, and Mace, that's what I think happens. I do think we're going to see a lot more Mike Boone this year than people expect.
He looked good today.
Yes, he did. Now, a lot more doesn't necessarily mean 33% Mike Boone, but I think we're going to see him play some on offense this year, both out of the backfield. He caught a couple of passes today and as a runner, and he's a guy that I think they can rely on in pass protection, which is key to see the field, but I think Royce Freeman's going to end up being the odd man out here, and you're going to have Javonte Williams, Melvin Gordon, and I find it very interesting that right now it's an even dose of those 3 right now, not giving the job to the rookie.
Yeah, I like Javonte Williams, how they're using him as well. They actually had him fielding punts today. Now, an opening there because KJ Hamler, the hamstring, supposedly it's minor, but he was out there on the side field today doing rehab work.
And that's where we left last week, was KJ telling us that his hamstring's, quote, fine, he's good. But for a second week in a row, Mace, he was not practicing.
Yeah, and obviously you don't need him right now. It's OTAs, I get it. But just given what his 2020 looked like, the hammy injury at the combine, multiple hamstring problems as you got him in for training camp and the regular season, I've got to see him get through a long period of heavy activity without it flaring up before I'm going to be really feeling good about where he stands and how reliable a component he's going to be in this offense. So, but that gave some other opportunities. Like I said, Javonte Williams, who was fielding punts, and Max Duffy was doing all the punting today.
Why don't we just get into the punting coverage
that you want to? A lot
of
placement punting, and I'm just going to say that Max Duffy working on his placement left and right. Every hang time that I had was at least 4.24 seconds. Keeps the ball up in the air, places it well, and also puts a little bit of a funky spin on it, which I think was why Javonte Williams had trouble fielding the punt. Obviously, he's got to gain some experience there as well. But yeah, that is our punting segment here on the DNVR Broncos podcast.
That's just what we were looking for, Mace. Max Duffy looking good, 28-year-old rookie.
And people thought Garrett Bowles was an old rookie in 2017.
For real. Like you said, Mace, Garrett Bowles not there today. Vic Fangio does expect him to be back next week. Said he's dealing with some family issues, so not a big concern there. All right, Mace, what were some other takeaways? I want to get to what the defense looked like, because last week we were talking about how Patrick Surtain was on the outside opposite Ron Darby, and then you had Bryce Callahan in the slot. Little different this week with Ron Darby not playing this week on the sideline. Kyle Fuller back, though, and you still did see Patrick Surtain as a starting outside cornerback.
Yeah, and Bryce Callahan getting all the slot work, and then having Fuller but not having Darby meant that you had Michael Ojemudia getting some looks when they went dime as well.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of clearly that's like you got an idea of who the fifth one is. It's Michael Ojemudia. The question is, who's the fourth one going to be? Now, I would like to see how.
You think there's a question there?
I mean, can you imagine the fourth cornerback being Darby or Fuller?
Yeah, Darby.
Yeah, paying him a lot of money to be a number 4. That's the only thing.
So who's making the decision? Is it George Payton making the decision on who's the fourth, or is it Vic Fangio and Donatel making the decision?
I think they will have an idea, but there may be some conversations involved. I think the other thing that we may also see is that we know that they're going to go more sub-package, and that's something that Vic Fangio has already indicated. Do we end up seeing more dime than we have ever seen from this team?
You should.
And then you get how with most teams the nickel effectively is the base. The nickel is what you use most. You're going nickel about 50% of the time, dime another 15%, base another 35% roughly.
And really quick, nickel we're talking 5 defensive
DBs,
backs, dime we're talking 6 DBs.
6 DBs. So what if dime becomes the base?
Yeah.
And then if dime is the base, that means we're not going to see a lot of Mike Purcell, because you're only going to see 2 D linemen, and we're presumably still going to see 2 edges, Vaughn and Chubb, Malik Reed rotating in. Who's your linebacker?
Gonna have 1.
Alexander Johnson, Josie Jewell.
Yeah, and today we talked to Alexander Johnson, and he said, after I asked him, how do you expect the linebacking core to work out? And he said, well, Josie and I are going to be the starters, and maybe on paper they're going to be the starters, Mace, but I don't know how often you're going to see those 2 guys on the field at the same time.
Yeah, and in a division where you're going up against Kansas City and Mahomes, the Raiders who like to spread it out, and then the Chargers they're gonna ride the wing of Justin Herbert. You may be looking at a scenario between those games and then some others on the schedule. Like Pittsburgh likes to spread things out as well. That you may be in a situation where we see more dime packages, dime personnel groupings than that of any other personnel group on this team.
Yeah,
and then there would be room for Ronald Darby to be the 4th cornerback and make everybody
and then you're talking about Patrick Surtain, who's a first-round pick, top 10 pick. You're talking Bryce Callahan, the best slot corner in the game last year when he was healthy. Ron Darby, a solid number 2 cornerback, again, when healthy. Kyle Fuller, a solid number 1 cornerback. You're talking all-pro safety Justin Simmons, and you're talking Kareem Jackson. Those are guys that you don't want to take any of those guys off. But what's interesting, Mace, and I think it's very interesting that we got to see this in 2 different ways last week and this week, was there's two guys that I mentioned when healthy, Bryce Callahan and Ronald Darby. You're crazy, and you're just silly. It's foolish. It's nonsense to think that both of those guys are going to be able to play 17 games this year. So it's good that we're getting a look now of how this defense is going to work, and that they're practicing it without intentionally meaning to, of how this defense, how this secondary fits together when everyone's not healthy. In a weird way, I kind of like that we're seeing that.
And basically, what you're just hoping is that Bryce Callahan and Ronald Darby aren't injured at the same time.
Exactly. You hope that between the two of them, they play 17 games.
If one of them's available every game, and then, of course, you have good health elsewhere, you're fine. I mean, Higher Learning's actually had an interesting comment on Surtain, saying Surtain's going to be covering all the league's best tight ends and big wide receivers. I think that is a legit possibility.
Yeah, it is.
Your guy on Darren Waller, your guy on Travis Kelce is going to be Pat Surtain.
And is that how it should be? Because, Mace, what we're seeing now, again, Noah Fant was not there today. I don't expect the Broncos to be showing us, and especially just in this third week of OTAs, to be doing all of their complex coverages right now. But what we've seen isn't Patrick Surtain moving around to all over the field. He's staying just on that right side.
True, but we're at an early stage of install.
Right. So is that something that you expect to see? Or is it a Justin Strnad, a big linebacker who's on those guys? Or do you do Justin Simmons on those guys?
It's a good question, and it could be something where they rotate guys. But even when you're kind of shuffling and having a cast of all characters handling that, and especially maybe not against, say, a Donald Parham of the Chargers, the big, long guy out of Stetson who had some catches against the Broncos late last year. But Parham isn't nearly on the level, of course, of Waller and Kelce.
Right.
So against a Parham, maybe you're saying, okay, it's going to be kind of one guy. If you're going against an elite tight end, and we didn't even mention, like, they're facing a bad Eagles team, but the Eagles are great at tight end with what they have depth-wise as well, that you're going to have some games where maybe you say this is going to be throw everything at this matchup. And then other games where you're facing a tight end that you're not terribly worried about, then you're saying, okay, yeah, this is going to be primarily one guy, and maybe it's a linebacker. But if it's Kelce, I think this is going to be an all-hands-on-deck situation.
As it should be.
Where you're trying to kind of – you're going to figure out what works. I mean, the key is if it's not working, don't be afraid to go away from it. Don't get caught like you did back in week 1 of 2019 when you had Isaac Yiadom on Darren Waller, and it took a while to get him off of Darren Waller. That switch should have been made earlier. Then they doubled down on week 17 by putting Isaac Yiadom back on Darren Waller.
Yikes.
And lo and behold, Darren Waller made plays again. Shock.
It seems to safe to say that you weren't a fan of that.
No.
But
it's always a question of, the old cliche about insanity being that you repeat the same process and expect a different result.
Yeah, I'm glad you said cliche, because if you said definition, I think Ryan would storm onto this set and say that is not the definition. But you didn't. You said cliche, so right on there. So
that really gets under his.
Oh, it
skin,
does. It does. So if you want to get under his skin, maybe I'm talking to Allie. She knows that. But that's how to do it. Mace, what were some other takeaways from practice today?
Tyree Cleveland looked really good today, I thought.
Yeah, and speaking of KJ Hamler not being there, that's a guy who's really stepping up.
Yeah, he's catching everything right now, and you start when you get beyond kind of the starters, you start saying, okay, who's making plays, who's around the ball. So I think you look at Tyree Cleveland on the offensive side, and I think you look at Jamar Johnson on the defensive side. One interception off Bridgewater. The near interception against Drew Lock that we allude to when Lock tried to throw the fastball in there. But the point being is that Jamar Johnson seems to find himself around the ball. Mm-hmm. And that's what you expected. That was his strong point, was coming out of Indiana, and we saw it with the 2 picks that he had off Justin Fields in that game in Columbus last November. It's ball skills. Yep. It's being able to read, anticipate, and react. And that's something that Jamar Johnson does really well. That's why I'd say right now, if you've got him and Caden Stearns, and you're saying, okay, which of these two is ahead in terms of a rookie getting playing time, based on ball skills, anticipation, Johnson appears to be ahead right now.
Yeah, and Vic said, someone asked him a question today, like, you said he was a ball hawk, and Vic said, well, I don't know if I said he's a ball hawk, but he needs to work on tackling first.
Yeah.
And Mace, that's going to be the thing. If he can become a tackler that Vic is confident in, then he's going to see the field, and then you're talking about maybe he's the guy that's stepping onto the field in dime situations. If one guy's hurt, he can step in and get on the field, because we just talked about the issue of how tough it's going to be getting all these playmakers on the field. He's probably going to take a big back role this year, but man, if he just keeps continuing to improve, that's going to be very good for the Broncos and allow them to move on from Kareem in a year or two.
And the thing is, Kareem, of course, is on that 1-year deal. Now that Kareem is getting into year 12, you kind of have to, in your mind, think, all right, natural progression means he may miss a game or two over the course of the 17. So Trey Marshall is still there. He's experienced. But I really want to see how much Johnson and Stearns do to kind of close the gap. And if one of them maybe even surpasses Marshall to be the first safety off the bench. Because you want both Stearns and Johnson to improve their tackling. Now, Stearns, like, that was the thing that kind of jumped out to me watching when I went back and watched him at Texas. He's a willing tackler, but he's not a good fundamental tackler, and he's got to improve that. And by the way, nobody's going to improve their tackling out there right now because you're going 7-on-7, Skelly, as Vic Fangio calls it, and you're not tackling to the ground. You're not having a lot of heavy contact. We're not going to get a read on how far Johnson and Stearns have come as tacklers until we get later in the summer.
Right.
And that may tell the tale. Right now, based on what we see, Jamar Johnson looks like he's the better of the two. But again, with no tackling, it's really hazy to gauge right now. You're just judging anticipation, reading the intent of the offense. And Johnson appears to be pretty good at reading and diagnosing a quarterback's intent.
Yep, exactly. Mace, just a couple of other things right now, some housekeeping notes. I really liked what I saw from Malik Reed today and Von Miller. Like you said, Von Miller obviously slowed it down. Malik Reed starting off practice with an interception because he was in great position. He was right behind Drew, right where he needed to be. He was also having great pressure throughout practice.
The old cliche, luck is where preparation meets opportunity, right?
Yeah.
It was lucky for Malik Reed, but preparation in terms of being able to do all the work necessary and prove to where he's going to win that matchup creates the opportunity when the ball slips out of Locke's hands.
Yep.
That's what it's all about. What did you think of Austin Fort today?
They
involved him a lot as well.
They loved him last year, and the Broncos are kind of looking for maybe one more guy in the tight end room to make a step up there.
Yeah, now Albert Okwuegbunam, he's continuing to work his way back. Yeah, he looked good when he was an individual, so did Cortland Sutton. But that one thing that has been common to all three practices is trying to involve Austin Fort.
Yep.
Heavily. And he made some plays today, very, very reliable. You wonder if he's going to effectively replace Jake Butt on the roster. Back of the roster tight end, real good route running and pass catching skills, but has the significant injury concerns.
Right.
And you're just hoping that he can figure out how to stay healthy, that he can have some better luck there, because when he's out there, you can see he just keeps getting open. Kind of like Jerry Jeudy does a real good job finding gaps in zone coverage and setting the quarterback up, and then when the QB can find him, especially Bridgewater, because he's clicked with Austin Ford a few times as well. It's set up some good plays the last couple of weeks.
Oh, and Mace, that was my final takeaway from today, just little tidbit, was Albert O. He looks pretty solid out there. Now, he's not doing anything with team, just like Cortland Sutton's not. They're not doing anything in 7-on-7, but I was encouraged the way he was moving today. That would be a huge piece to get back, as we've seen in team and 7-on-7. Broncos are really trying to use two tight ends and multiple tight end sets more often than I think any of us really expected, which is good. They should do that. Play to your team's strengths. We're seeing flashes of that, and a big reason that to see a flash is if Albert O is back, and it looks like he's trending in the right direction for camp. Maybe not full-time by camp, but sometime this season.
Yeah, and we'll see also more on Eric Saubert, who who they signed a couple months ago. We'll see more on him when they get into 11-on-11 full pads, but he looks to be, in Simpsons parlance, a perfectly cromulent rotational tight end.
Cromulent.
Yeah, that's all-star, no. Reliable, Yeah, very much so.
Yes. Yeah.
And he'll be fine. He'll be fine as a depth rotational piece. No worries there.
And there you go. We hit punter talk. We hit like fifth string tight end talk. That means it's time to wrap it up here on the live portion of
deeper,
this.
huh?
If anyone or whoever's tuning in on YouTube still, please hit us with a like on your way out. Subscribe if you can as well. It really, really helps us out. And then also turn on alerts, because sometimes we're doing this right after practice and we don't know exactly when it's going to start. So then you'll know when we're starting to get the latest from today's training camp or OTA practice. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. We're going to hop over to the podcast side to finish things out. So find us anywhere where podcasts are. Just search Broncos. We'll be the first one that comes out. For Andrew Mason, I'm Zach Stevens. We'll talk to you soon.